I'll show you how to install a brand new exhaust onto a Honda Pilot. In this case, we're working on a 2005.
Getting the old exhaust off is really going to be the hardest part of the job, and depending on how bad the exhaust bolts are rusted on there, there's a few different techniques to get them off.
Depending on how rusty your nuts and bolts are, it's going to be tricky to get them off. In our case, these were completely rounded over from the rust, so just using a chisel and chiseling the bolts in half, splitting them off, was the only option to go, and when we put new ones on, we're definitely going to go with brass. Taking off these rubber exhaust mounts could be pretty tricky, and instead of just pulling them off, you might need to use a screwdriver, maybe work some grease into there and move it around and then pull it off.
Now we can pull out the old exhaust.
You can see this old catalytic converter has lots of holes in it, and it is far gone. So we went with a stainless steel catalytic converter, and it was only about $100, and it's gonna last a lot longer. And this system is definitely bad. I mean, there's a hole right on top of the resonator here. So I'm glad we're getting a new stainless system because those stainless exhausts last much longer. On the old muffler, we had actually rewrapped the entire thing with steel and then sealed that, and it lasted probably about another year, but this new system is just gonna be great. I'll lay out the new exhaust system here against the old one and make sure all the parts are the same. And in total, the new exhaust stainless steel system was about $600. We'll start at the front of the exhaust and start bolting things to the back. And these are our aluminum gaskets. They're basically a hollow tube that sits right there. Whenever you bolt this on, it crushes that, and it's gonna make a seal, but it's also very high temperature. Silicone grease is gonna make it a lot easier to slide these pins back onto the rubber brackets, and it's also not gonna start to deteriorate the rubber. Instead of putting steel nuts back on the system, you're gonna be a lot happier if you put brass ones back on, because next time you take this off, it's gonna be so much easier. It's a lot easier to cut these off if you need to. Brass really won't corrode as much as steel will, and it expands at a different rate than steel, so if you were to heat it up, these would just pop right off and it'd be very easy to remove them.
And I'll put the first piece in. First, I'll install the metal hanger, and that went in nice and easy. And we can start with the studs, both on the left and right catalytic converter. You may have to use a pry bar to get everything to fit together and get everything in the right position. And we'll install the brass, and we'll snug these on evenly and tighten up the back ones.
Next, I'm going to install the catalytic converter, and I'm just going to use steel hardware for this. It would be better if I was using brass, but in this case, you don't need to remove the catalytic converter to drop the exhaust system. And you have more room around these bolts if you needed to grind them off, but they're not quite as necessary. You use another one of these crush gaskets on the side where this connects to the manifold, and then you use one of these steel gaskets on the side that goes back down to the resonator and the muffler.
We'll put our bolts in, and then put the hardware on. With this crush washer, you want to snug everything up evenly.
Next, I'll install the resonator, and then I'll install the piece that connects the resonator to the catalytic converter, because this piece has a bend in it, and if I install it now, there's 3 different positions I can have it in, and it might be in the wrong position. So it's easier if I go ahead and mount this up there, then I can figure out which orientation this is supposed to be that lines the two of them up.
We'll put some grease on the exhaust mount. You want to put the rubber piece onto the exhaust first, then we'll lift up the whole piece and put it on the bracket.
We'll hang the muffler roughly where it's supposed to go.
And we'll connect the 2 pipes with a coupler.
A jack stand is going to help keep everything in the position where it's supposed to be. And tighten them up.
And it looks like the company did not send the piece that connects these two, connects the resonator and the muffler. Or just the muffler assembly wasn't made right, because it also is hitting the suspension right here. It's actually rubbing against that, so I'm not sure what's happening here. The new exhaust system that we got from UPSW, Auto Parts, I got it off the eBay store, it doesn't fit. There's a little section here that they don't meet together. It's like it's missing a part. So what we had to do was cut off a piece of the old rusty exhaust and mount it in here with a coupler and some more exhaust clamps so that we can actually have this flowing together.
Now with everything mounted, we'll go ahead and turn it on. Now with that pipe that we installed, everything seems to be really nice and quiet, and it's so much better than it was before. But it was kind of disappointing how this exhaust said that it would fit our car, but definitely didn't. I talked with UPSW's customer service, and as we were talking on the phone, we went through all the part numbers. I got the part numbers off the muffler, the resonator, and all the parts to make sure that they sent the right ones and there wasn't any missing parts. And we looked through them all, and there's not any missing parts in this system. Everything that was sent is what was supposed to be sent for this 2005 Honda Pilot, and it definitely doesn't fit. And it kind of has me in a tricky situation because obviously I can't put the old exhaust back on, and the new exhaust doesn't really fit. And what they offered was that we could send this back and they would give us a refund and they would pay for the return shipping. But this is already mounted on my car, and obviously I can't take it back off and then I'd say wait another 3 weeks before I can have another exhaust on here. That's kind of a sticky situation. Now, if it weren't for that issue that we had with it not fitting, it runs very quietly, it sounds so much better than it did before, and it's a pretty nice exhaust.